Merv was a metropolitan province of the Church of the East between the 5th and 11th centuries, with several known suffragan dioceses. Background: at least one East Syrian diocese in Khorasan existed by the beginning of the 5th century, though it was not assigned to a metropolitan province in 410. After establishing 5 metropolitan provinces in Mesopotamia, Canon 21 of the Synod of Isaac provided that the bishops of the more remote dioceses of Fars, of the islands, of Beth-Madeh, of Beth-Razikaye and of the country of Abrashah must accept the definition established in this council at a later date. By implication, Abrashah already had a bishop at this period. 4 East Syrian dioceses in Khorasan and Sigistan are attested a few years later. The bishops Bar-Shaba of Merv, David of Abrashah, Jazdwa of Herat and Afrod of Sigistan were present at the Synod of Dardasho in 424. The uncommon name of the Bishop of Merv, Bar-Shaba, means "son of the deportation," suggesting that Merv's Christian community may have been deported from Roman territory. The Diocese of Sigistan, whose bishop probably sat at Zarang, was disputed during the schism of Nasai and Elisha in the 520s. The Patriarch Abarai resolved the dispute in 544 by temporarily dividing the diocese, assigning Zarang, Farah and Kash to the bishop Yazdifred and Bistanrukit to the bishop Sargus. He ordered that the diocese should be reunited as soon as one of these bishops died. The Christian population of the Merv region seems to have increased during the 6th century, as the bishop of Merv was recognized as a metropolitan at the Synod of Joseph in 554 and Herat also became a metropolitan diocese shortly afterwards. The first known metropolitan of Herat was present at the Synod of Isho-Yahbi in 585. The growing importance of the Merv region for the Church of the East is also attested by the appearance of several more Christian centers during the late 5th and 6th century. By the end of the 5th century, the Diocese of Abrashah also included the city of Tus, whose name featured in 497 in the title of the Bishop Johannes of Tus and Abrashah. 4 more dioceses seem also to have been created in the 6th century. The bishops Johanan of Abiwud and Sharparoz and Theodore of Merwi Rud accepted the Acts of the Synod of Joseph in 554, the latter by letter, while the bishops Habib of Pusang and Gabriel of Badisi and Kurdistan adhered by proxy to the decisions of the Synod of Isho-Yahbi in 585, sending deacons to represent them. None of these 4 dioceses is mentioned again, and it is not clear when they lapsed. Timothy I consecrated a metropolitan named Nanisho for Sarbaz in the 790s. This diocese is not mentioned again. In 893 Elia of Damascus listed both Merv and Herat as metropolitan provinces. Sigistan was a suffragan diocese of Herat, while Merv had suffragan dioceses for Derhans, Damadat, and Darbasanai, 3 districts whose locations are entirely unknown. By the 11th century, East Syrian Christianity was in decline in Khorasan and Sigistan. The last known metropolitan of Merv was Abdasho, who was consecrated by the Patriarch Mari. The last known metropolitan of Herat was Gawagas, who flourished in the reign of Sabrisho III. If any of the suffragan dioceses were still in existence at this period, they are not mentioned. The surviving urban Christian communities in Khorasan suffered a heavy blow at the start of the 13th century, when the cities of Merv, Nishapur and Herat were stormed by Genghis Khan in 1220. Their inhabitants were massacred, and although all 3 cities were refounded shortly afterwards, it is likely that they had only small East Syrian communities thereafter. Nevertheless, at least one diocese survived into the 13th century. In 1279 an unnamed bishop of Tours entertained the monks Bas, Omar and Marcos in the monastery of Marseille near Tours during the pilgrimage from China to Jerusalem, the diocese of Merv. The Bishop Bar Shaba of Merv was among the signatories of the Acts of the Synod of Dardasho in 424. The Bishop Faramai, Bishop of the town of Merv, was among the signatories of the Acts of the Synod of Acacius in 486. The Bishop Johanan of Merv was among the signatories of the Acts of the Synod of Babai in 497. The Bishop David, Bishop Metropolitan of Merv, adhered by letter to the Acts of the Synod of Joseph in 554. The priest Marek was among the signatories of the Acts of the Synod of Ishoyhbi in 585, on behalf of the Metropolitan Gregory of Merv. The Metropolitan Elia of Merv was among the bishops present at the deathbed of the Patriarch Ishoyhbi in 659. The Metropolitan Abdasho, formerly Bishop of Ispahan, was appointed Metropolitan of Merv by the Patriarch Mari. He was Metropolitan of Merv when Elia Bar Shana completed his chronography in 1018/19. The Diocese of Herat. The Bishop Yazdwar of Herat was among the signatories of the Acts of the Synod of Dardasho in 424. The Bishop Yazdad of Herat adhered by letter to the Acts of the Synod of Babai in 497. The priest Daniel was among the signatories of the Acts of the Synod of Ishoyhbi in 585, on behalf of the Metropolitan Gabriel of Herat. The Metropolitan Aristus of Herat was degraded during the Patriarchate of Slibazedkha and replaced by Johanan, who was himself degraded during the Patriarchate of Pithayan and replaced by Panahisho. The Diocese of Sigistan. The Bishop Alfred of Sigistan was among the signatories of the Acts of the Synod of Dardasho in 424. In 540 the Diocese of Sigistan was disputed between two bishops, Jasdifred and Sargis, consecrated during the schism of Nasi and Elisha. The Patriarch Marabarai, after taking evidence for both parties, resolved the dispute by temporarily dividing the diocese, placing Yazdifred in charge of the Church of the Christians of Zarang, Farah and Kash, and Sargas over the churches of Bist and Rukit. He insisted that the diocese should be reunited after the death of one or other bishop. The Bishop Kerma of Sigistan was among the signatories of the Acts of the Synod of Ezekiel in 576. The Patriarch Sabrisho III consecrated Guagas of Kashgar a bishop shortly after his consecration in 1063 quarters, and sent him to Khorasan and Sigistan. Guagas then travelled on to the territory of the Khitan, where he remained until the end of his life. The Diocese of Tours under Brayshah. The Bishop David of Abrayshah was among the signatories of the Acts of the Synod of Dardasho in 424. The Bishop Johannes of Tours under Brayshah was among the signatories of the Acts of the Synod of Babai in 497. An unnamed bishop of Tours entertained the monks Rabans Omar and Marcos in the monastery of Marseille near Tours during the pilgrimage from China to Jerusalem in 1279. The Diocese of Merwi Rud. The Bishop Theodore of Merwi Rud adhered by letter to the Acts of the Synod of Joseph in 554. The Diocese of Abiwud and Sharparoz. The Bishop Johanan of Abiwud and Sharparoz was among the signatories of the Acts of the Synod of Joseph in 554. The Diocese of Pusang. The deacon Elisha was among the signatories of the Acts of the Synod of Ishoyhbi in 585, on behalf of the Bishop Habib of Pusang. The Diocese of Badisi and Kurdistan. The deacon Sargis was among the signatories of the Acts of the Synod of Ishoyhbi in 585, on behalf of the Bishop Gabriel of Badisi and Kurdistan.